Welcome to Inkpulp Audio, everyone. In the video world, I'm streaming from the universe. Today, let me get rid of that nonsense. There we go. So I'm in my studio. Today, I got Eric Canete. Say hi, Eric.
Hello, everyone.
Drawing. What are you drawing today, Eric? What are you working on?
This is just me effing around with Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow from G.I. Joe.
Were you a G.I. Joe fan as a kid?
Yeah, man, that was the thing I ran home from school to.
Best toys ever, man.
Yeah, dude, super affordable. I'll tell you a funny story about that later.
Okay.
Introduce Jeff.
Okay. And I got Jeff Dekal in here.
What up, what up?
What up, Jeff? And you are working on, are these the drawings for your, for that fundraiser you had going?
Yeah, I got about 27 of them to do, so they're all just kind of meditative. Is that the right word?
Meditative?
Yeah, meditative, just portraits, just kind of relaxing, small drawings.
Okay, cool. All right, I'm going to switch the camera to my desk. And then, Eric, tell us about your G.I. Joe story.
I got caught stealing G.I. Joes at a local, from a local, I guess, what are they, like a local pharmacy? And it was funny how they caught me. Is that I was ripping that shit out of the bubble pack, right, and stuffing them down my pant leg and into my sock. And they one of the associates straight up came to me and said, like, "Hey, we caught you on camera stealing." And you're a kid, so you're like, "No, I didn't." And you pointed it directly where it was in my sock,
Yeah.
And the awful part and the semi-embarrassing part is I stole I can't remember what Zartan's sister's name was. So he gave me this look like, "Oh, you stole the girl one. You know what? We're not going to bring this up. Just don't do it again." Like, "Thank you," and I ran over to my mom.
Oh, your mom was there?
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, she was shopping.
Damn, that's ballsy, man.
That's cool. What do you think they really caught you on camera, or do you think they were just fucking with you?
Oh, there's no way they could have just randomly come up to me and been like, "Hey, we know where that is on your body," I think they had me on camera the entire time, but.
Oh. All right, so Eric.
And that's what taught me to never steal again.
Did you ever steal again after that?
I don't think so, man. I just thought, like, there's got to be a better way for me to fucking get these toys. And it's just a toy too, so it's like.
Right. And so you basically said, if I get money for drawing, then I can get money.
No, it's just one of those things where you just realize that this ain't worth it. This would be so disappointing to my mother if she found out.
Oh God, yeah. All right, Jeff, I got a question for you.
Let's go.
You said you called those meditative drawings. Why are they? What makes them meditative?
No pre-existing character, no pre-existing costume, no. I don't gotta worry about it being published, the world seeing it.
Is
so
it the act? Go ahead.
So automatically that's all off the table. So I'm not even thinking about any of that when I work. And I'm just able to kind of get more involved in my own kind of process. I mean, everything we do is our own process, but there's just a lot less baggage on these.
So it's meditative in the sense that there's no pressure in it. It's just an act of study, or
and I've also been getting into like the more the mark making with these, which I don't really do with my covers and my digital work because they're so fully executed, they're so fully finished and painted that um, I don't get into the mark making, and I haven't, and I also haven't done like full-fledged pencil drawings in a really long time. Like all of these are like completely done in pencil.
With graphite?
Yeah, just this mechanical pencil. That's it.
What kind of lead you got in there?
0.52B. That's it. So it's a small lead, so I could really get into all my little marks and hatching and stuff like that. And
So you're
um,
achieving those rich darks just by building that 2B?
yeah, layers, man, layers. I stress that to everybody. Just layering the lead.
Okay, cool. All right, so one of the things I'm really trying to do for this season, which I'm calling the Quarantine Chronicles, and I started it yesterday with Mateo and Mafood, and now with you guys, is I want to kind of capture what's going on in the world and in our lives as this pandemic thing is going on. So I do have some questions, but like I remember Eric, you left Chicago early because of this virus had affected you in some way, and
Yeah.
that was how long ago now?
Whenever C2E2 was, so maybe a month back, maybe less, a little more.
Yeah,
But yeah, I came home only because there were issues happening at home at the time, and I won't get into it too much, but it certainly did impact. Well, right before I was leaving for Chicago, my wife was already like, hey, you think it's a good idea considering there's this stuff that's going around? And I said, you know, I don't know if it's as blown out of proportion as I think it is, right?
right.
Because it was super early. It was like
Yeah,
barely crawling across, New York, barely crawling across wherever. And there wasn't a ton of information at that point. Everything was just, like I heard it from everything was just like hearsay. I heard it from this or I read it from this, but there wasn't a ton of information coming through.
right,
And so it's like, I had planned this trip for a very long time. As a matter of fact, it's the first, at least for me, it was the first show of the season. I kind of want to get out there, just to keep my body of work and the stuff that I do fresh in people's minds. It's not that my livelihood is contingent on a show, but certainly it doesn't hurt, right, to make a little
right.
bit of an extra scratch during the year.
Sure, sure.
So off I went, and something happened at home, and I had to come right back. It was mildly related to the pandemic, but not directly, right?
Right.
Um, but once I did get home, it became clearer because it was strange. Like in the span of a weekend, it became clearer that things were getting super serious nationally, right?
Right.
Because more information started to come out, and it took personal reflection to not let too much information bounce around in my head, right? Because there's a point when it's just saturation, right?
Right.
There's a point when it's not even data anymore, it's just somebody's perspective on the situation, and that's like the most annoying, right?
Right.
um and so, but yeah, it's only impacted me in such a way that it's knowledge that's out there. Like I work from home, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't like, hey, you know you need to start staying home from here on down, right? Because there's a mandated statewide order that you have to stay at home, right? for
Right.
for the sake of public safety. It was never anything like that. I work from home anyway. It's just the fact that it's in the air now, and anytime that let's say I go run some groceries, you can start seeing, like, yesterday, as recently as yesterday, I was picking up groceries for the house, and the elderly, I could like, if I took stock of who was wearing masks during that grocery trip, it
Yeah.
was a lot of elderly people who were doing it.
Okay.
which was interesting.
Yeah, around here I'm seeing everyone. Not, I mean, not everyone in math, but all age groups represented in the math worthy
Yeah.
population. But let me ask you, when you were at the con, was there something in the air about it? Like were people like starting to talk and buzz about it? Like what's going
Yeah,
on?
well, again, it had just started to circulate that maybe it was less than ideal to have these shows, right? But it hadn't become an initiative yet, right? It
Right.
started, the conversation just started to happen about, hey, should we go to these shows? In as much as, hold on, Siri's acting stupid. In as much as, not as much as when, oh gosh, when Seattle was coming around, like people were like, that show should not exist at all. Like that should be
Right.
taken off the calendar and rescheduled or whatever, right? But at
Right.
this show, everybody was still kind of in the mode of like, should we go? Should we not? And so it was already, yeah, definitely. People were like, hey, do you want to do, you should just fist bump people, or you should just, and it's those kinds of things when everyone's psychologically course correcting, right?
Right.
So yeah, definitely. And when you conduct yourself in a different way, in a different manner, more than anything else,
Yeah, I do remember
definitely it's
seeing,
palpable.
say that again.
I said it's definitely palatable. When you're at a show and you wouldn't even think twice about shaking some guy's hand. Now people are like, I'm never shaking somebody's hand during what's
Right.
happening.
And I do remember seeing Facebook posts like I didn't understand like I still like I understand the not shaking hands,
Yeah.
but I don't understand the need to like go on Facebook and announce that you will not be shaking hands.
I don't know.
That part I didn't get.
I think it's, I don't know. If I were to hazard a guess, and I'm with you, I understand the space that you're talking about, but I think it's just setting up the right expectation if you are a fan of that creator,
Yeah, I get
like,
it.
hey, they're not going to be shaking your hand, so don't take offense to it. This is
Right.
primarily for the sake of personal safety or personal health or whatever.
Yeah,
I get it.
I get that. I guess. Yeah.
I don't know, man. I think some people just any excuse to make a post.
Yeah, I mean that's
Yeah,
part,
no, that's not.
that's what I'm getting at. That's certainly part of it. Like some people, I think they're too important, but then some people are just being very, very considerate. Maybe too much so, but it's not harmful.
Yeah, no, I know of a handful of those people that I'm like, oh, I was just talking about this on Twitter. I was like, oh, I just discovered mute somebody for 30 days. Fuck yeah. I love that function. I
Right.
can't stand, I'm rarely on Facebook anyway, and when I'm on there, it's a deluge of everybody's perspective on what's happening pandemic
Oh my
wise,
god,
what
ridiculous.
do you call it, politics wise. It's really the two P's right now. It's politics and pandemic, you know what I mean?
All right. So
And I'm like, I can fucking mute you for 30 days? Hell
on
yeah.
which app can you do that?
On Facebook.
You can mute for 30 days?
Hell yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
and it's good, and it's good. The 30-day thing is good because I've muted people on Instagram and then I forget, and then like months will go by and then something, whatever, they'll come up and I'll be like, oh shit, I did not mean to never fucking follow,
You never
I didn't,
unmuted them.
yeah. So
Yeah,
30
yeah.
days.
I found myself, I spent a good hour or so the other day just muting people on Twitter.
Yeah, man.
That's just crazy.
It's not because, they're talking garbage. It's just like, it's one more person. It's
Right,
one
man.
more person giving their fucking hot take of how you should stay home. And it's one more person. And it's not to say it's not coming from a good place. Obviously, they don't want for everybody's public safety. But dude, enough of you, like
Yeah.
if people are not staying home, right? They're gonna do it despite of what you say. There's nothing that you're saying right now that's gonna make that one person going, oh, so and so artist or so and so writer or so and so editor is. I mean, these are the kinds of people that I follow, obviously. But I mean, like, so and so is telling me to stay home. I better do it. Like
Right.
they weren't gonna stay home before you said that. They're not gonna stay home now.
Right.
Knock it off. What kind of like superpower do you have?
But that gets back to what I was saying with some of the people saying announcing they won't be shaking hands. I guess social media is giving some people an unrealistic sense of importance,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
think that falls into that category. Like, I must tell my public what they can and cannot do.
Here's the position in which I stand on these issues, and yada yada yada. I'm like, okay,
Right, totally.
good for you, man. But look at this look at this mute button that I just found. Awesome.
Right.
Yeah, and then and then you know what else, man? I think is ridiculous when someone says, you know, this is what happened to me, whatever it is, this is terrible, and if you do this or if you support this, then that's a slap in the face to me, and whatever, you know. It's like,
Yeah, the
man,
absolute intolerance for another point of view right now is a little crazy.
uh,
Yeah.
That
No,
should,
for sure.
right.
I was doing
yeah,
a
I
little
think.
bit of. I was doing. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I kind of just been thinking about this, and I've been thinking about this a lot, and obviously this whole situation just intensifies it. I just think people, how do I put this, man? I just think people resist the nature of the universe. You know, they just like, they just don't, yeah, they just resist the nature of the universe, man. The
What do you mean
universe
by
is,
that, Jeff?
Yeah.
the universe is organized chaos, you know, and
Yes.
and
Mhm.
and and, and the universe is terrible and the universe is beautiful, and a lot of times people only want to accept and promote the beautiful stuff and everything, and I think it also, I think people also stay too zoomed in. You know, it's this isn't about us. This whole situation, it's not about us, it's not about people. You know, it's about the planet. You know, it's about life on this planet, and then if you zoom out even further, it's about the universe. You know, then you zoom back in and it's about us, but then you zoom out and it's about, dude, it's amazing all the pollution is dropping. You know, it's like, if
Yeah.
you
They're
know,
they're
so
part.
it's just not about us. And but it is, oh, it's about the economy. You know, it's about all that shit, and it's impossible, man. It's just impossible to, I think it's impossible for us to find a balance of everybody. I don't know, man. It's just so it's I've thought about it. I think like I want to write something. I want to really figure out my thoughts and kind of write something about what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because there's just so much going on, and I just think people don't. All in all, man, people don't zoom out enough, in my opinion. You know,
Yeah, I
Mm.
understand that. I mean, people are
but
very. Go ahead. I'm going to cut you off.
nah, that's it, man. I'm just kind of babbling. I haven't really thought about it enough to start really making
I
a
mean, I think we are living through a very like everyone's all in their phones all the time, consumed with their own problems, and I mean, there's so much going on around all of us, and it just the bombarded with information. I think it's definitely made it hard for people to think beyond that at times.
To Jeff's point, though, and this is not to diminish what you just said, Jeff, but it's like the reason why to me it's like not necessarily acceptable, but it's understandable, is because I understand human nature, right? They can't they it's not very often that you can talk to somebody about the grander picture or like zooming out and having a more holistic taking a more holistic attitude towards what's happening, because people have a tendency to be like very human, take on something that's most important to them, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
in as much as I sort of like dismiss people in their politics, dismiss people of their, perspective on the pandemic, yada yada, I understand why they're doing it, right? So I it's far be it for me to be judgmental to the nth degree. Obviously it's unavoidable for me to do so. I just go like, oh, I understand why they're doing that. It's easier for you to it's easier to for a human being to establish the farthest left and farthest right of an understanding of what's going on, because it gives them a sense of control, right? If I understand everything in my in directly in front of me and conceptually in my periphery, I feel like I am in control of the situation. And that is a very human thing to do, right? Because if they accept this is all happening and none of it is my control, people generally don't know how to operate in that space
Yeah.
because we've
That's
been
what I
told that we're the center of the universe, you know?
Well, that's what I think the problem is. I
Yeah.
think so much pain and suffering could be avoided if people can flip that perspective, and I don't think it should be one or the other. I think it should be a healthy balance of both, that
Yeah.
everything's about us, the economy needs to be good, we need to get back to work, and also we are nothing. We are little microorganisms on a rock hurling through infinity, rotating around a fireball.
Sure.
It's
I get it.
I,
I
yeah,
understand that perspective for sure.
yeah.
But everything that we're doing now, everything that we are as a society, everything is about that personalization, which ultimately means you and your not you, but I mean a person's experience as they are interacting, engaging with X, right? And it's hard to understand that, oh yeah, this is only one component, right, of what it means to exist, but there is also these other things as well, and but you can't monetize everything else, you can monetize personal interactions, you can monetize personalization. That makes sense to me. I understand why people are caught up in things that may sort of not give them a bigger picture.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm agreeing with that too.
It
So,
doesn't it doesn't make what Jeff is saying is wrong. I think
no, no, no.
I
I think it's a discussion. It's not. There's no simple like answer. You can't just say it is this way or that way. I think it's
right,
all things.
right.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, I agree. That's what I'm saying and what you're saying are both of the both sides of the coin.
Yep.
So, one thing that I want to talk about now would be a good time to get into it is, um, so let me just say one thing. Eric, you're on the West Coast
Yeah.
near Portland, Oregon. Jeff, you are in the Miami area, and I'm in Atlanta. So we all have different experiences with what's going on right now. Eric, how has this affected you? Has it affected you minimally? Um, a little, moderately, a lot. I don't know. How is all this affected?
The pandemic.
Yeah.
Minimally, but that's by design, right?
How is that by design?
Because all the information that's available to me is available to everybody else. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like all the available to you, available to Jeff, but I actively say, okay, that's as much as I'm going to take of that, right? Because in as much as I have
Information.
zero control. Say again.
You're talking about the information, controlling the
Yep.
information coming in.
Yeah. So, and that's what I'm talking about when I say by design. Like I could sit here and like continuously scroll the infinite, swipe up nature of how we are being given information, or I can go like, is that like if it, like in I take like three things. I take three bits of information that I'm like, okay, that's almost similar to everything else that I've read so far, so I'm going to put this down and go elsewhere, right?
Right.
Because I don't think it's good for my mental state of mind and my overall spirit to be bombarded by stuff over and over and over and over again,
Sure. Sure. I
and
get
I
that.
don't care what the source. It could be somebody that I'm really familiar and intimate with, or it could be somebody that I'm just, I barely know, but they're all saying the same thing. I try to get to the core of what they're talking about and go like, oh, that's similar to everything else that I've heard. Why do I need more of that?
Right.
So if it has impacted me anymore, it was like in the very beginning where I started thinking about like, personal safety for my family, safety for my extended family, and so on. And then I was like, you know what? I can't begin to sort of like account for them in as much as how they conduct themselves during this time. So the best that I can do is everybody in my closest sphere of influence, right? Give them my perspective, you know, be adamant about certain things, obviously. But outside of that, I'm like, you know, it's not that I'm out there like licking fucking toilet seats, right? Because I wouldn't do that
Right,
regardless
right.
of pandemic. Why would I fucking start now? You know, um, right? But I don't throw caution to the wind that way. But I certainly don't sit here and like, you know, kind of like stew in it. You know, I don't dwell in it because it doesn't make any sense. And I sure as hell don't go into social media and look for it, right?
Right, right.
That has very little return. You know, like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, my guess is just talking to some people, it's like fear just owns them, and the fear just makes them keep looking and keep like.
yeah,
I guess
people,
it's a quest for like what we were talking about earlier. The more and more information I get, the more I will feel like I can control the situation.
yep. Yep. The more information I have, which means I'm more knowledgeable of it, which means I have more control over it because I have knowledge of it. And that's rarely true.
Right,
And,
right.
and that's
Rarely is
sort of
that fucking
and,
true.
and that's sort of where the perspective I mentioned earlier comes in. It's like if you can just understand that again, it's not about us, and just
Yeah.
let go, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
If that's gonna that's if you're able to do that, if you're able to fucking let go, man, that's gonna relieve so much stress. I'm not saying maybe metaphorically let go with your hands, but you know, you got a little rope tied to your waist or something so you can dangle around, but you're not white knuckling and holding on so tight. You know what
Right,
I'm saying?
right. And
So so it's like, oh, if you want to come back, you want to read an article, you want to read 1 or 2 articles per day. Okay, nothing new. Let go. It's bigger than
Right.
us. Whatever's gonna
Right.
happen is gonna happen. We
Right.
can't control the fucking government. We can't control Mother Nature. We can't control the universe. There's so much we can't control that
Yeah.
people still get so anxious about, you know? And it's like if
Yeah.
you have absolutely no control over it, just go live your life, whatever
Right.
you can do to just fucking relax, you know?
Yeah.
yeah, I do
There's,
want to go ahead. Let me just, Eric, real quick. Let me just say because
yeah.
I want to come back to that. I do want to address that because I mean I have just let go, and yet I am feeling physical stress. That like I'm not depressed. I'm not anxious, but I mean I feel it physically. But I want to come
Mm.
back to that. I want to keep going with what Eric was saying. So Eric, when I ask you what how this is this affecting you? I mean, your answer is just about information, like controlling. All right. Well, it was asking me. Sorry everyone. I got bumped because I didn't have a full membership. Now I do. And then it asked me if I wanted to record to the cloud, which I don't. Blah blah blah. So we're back now. I remember exactly where we left off.
Yeah.
So Eric, I was asking you how if this had affected you, this virus, and you were talking about the information coming in. But
Yeah.
has it affected you in any other way? Like, has it affected you financially?
No, I work remotely anyway. So no, I mean, as I say that, you know, the company I work for is you know, I think this is in a strange way this sort of thing where they tell people to. I work for a video game company, so you know, people staying at home or being told to stay at home is advantageous for the nature of their business, right?
Right.
Is because that it effectively those who already play the game are being, you know, are encouraged to, just by the nature of staying at home, are encouraged to play the game even more. So in a way, again, advantageous for the
Oh,
business
right.
that I work for.
Just like Zoom is like right place at the right time for their
That's right.
business.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense for them. They are probably benefiting from it due to the nature of, like, you know, everybody doing video conferencing now, and I think it's a pretty amazing service, and
Zoom.
it's smart. It's, yeah, it's smart of them to monetize it as they have.
You think it's coincidence right around this time?
I think if anything, it compelled them to push the app out sooner. You know, maybe they were sort of R&Ding a handful of its, you know, utility and functionality, but with what's happening, they might have been like, oh, we got to get this out. What do you think, Jeff? You think it's like it's not coincidence?
Simulation, bro. It's part of the simulation.
Or in the Matrix. But how about personally? Like, do you feel like, are you going out less than you used to?
No, dude, I'm a homebody, right? Like I'm an introvert to begin with, and so it's not as if it's impacting me outside of, you know, again, outside of the external stuff. Personally, emotionally, I'm not in any different place that I was before the whole thing started. How about you guys?
Well, I mean, just real quick, it affected you in the sense that we were all going to hang out and go to Emerald City, so it's had a little impact.
Yeah, I know. I think in that case, yeah, but I really didn't want to see you guys. Perfect truth be told,
Right. Glad we figured that out. Jeff, what about you?
As far as my freelance work, not really. I mean, obviously, we all lost money not being able to do these conventions that are getting canceled. But the biggest thing for me is, yeah, social life, man. I mean, I think, I'm introvert. Maybe Eric. We're all different degrees of introvert, extrovert. Maybe Eric is a little bit more extreme than me on the introvert. I'm still introvert, but I still love getting out, man. I still love meeting my friends for lunch and going to the gym and doing all that. It just kind of breaks up my day and all and everything. And I'm not doing any of that anymore.
Right.
I've been inside and doing my own home workouts, which are, nothing compared to what I can do at the gym. And
right. So I mean, that's one thing I definitely want to talk about with you. It certainly had its impact on our workouts, not being able to get to a gym and all.
Yeah.
So how have you adjusted to that?
I mean, I'm just doing stuff at home, calisthenics. I got a pull-up bar. Just what anybody else can do from home as far as a workout goes. And I guess maybe one of the weirder feelings I've gotten throughout this whole thing is last week I went to see my mom. I just took some of my sketches and drove to her house and I worked on them there. And when I pulled up and I went to greet her for the first time in my life, I had second thoughts of, should I give my mom a hug? And I've never felt that, man. That was super weird.
Yeah.
And I did hug her, man, because it's at this point I think the benefits of giving my mom a fucking hug outweigh the risks, at least at this point,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. Yesterday, when I was recording with Mateo, we had a pretty sobering moment that's made me think about a lot of things. Just to briefly recap, Mateo's girlfriend's family have it, and her cousin, who was in ICU, I was asking how he was doing, and he had just passed away the day before from it.
From the virus?
Yeah.
Wow.
So
insane.
So that kind of made me think a lot more about some of this shit.
Was he immunocompromised? Have some underlying condition?
No, he was not.
He was just how old was he?
62 or so.
Okay. Was he a smoker?
No.
Damn.
No. I mean, some people are just getting taken out by it. So that was kind of like, I didn't expect that. And Jim was on the podcast. None of us expected that. And so that was kind of a sobering moment there. But your workouts, what are you doing now? I know you said your workouts aren't nearly what they used to be. So maybe talk about what
Nothing,
they
man.
were and
It's
what you're doing.
not even worth talking about. They're pathetic, man. Pull-ups, push-ups, body weight squats, or I'll hold a few of my heaviest art books while I do some squats, lunges. Um, that's it, man. I mean, and it's hard to get motivated when you're in the same space all day. Like being in the gym was very
Yeah,
motivating, you know.
yeah, yeah. I get that.
Um, so yeah, so it's like, yeah, maybe I should do an extra couple sets of dips or push-ups, but I'm like, fuck it, I'm just gonna get back to work, you know. Like motivation isn't there, but I'm doing it every day. I mean, it ain't like I don't got the time or the reason to work out
Yeah,
every day.
I've found. I mean, I'm. For me, this has been a real exercise in being mentally flexible, and I think I've done really well. My workouts are completely changed now, but
Yeah,
I'm enjoying them, and I'm gonna get in different kind of shape, and in some ways better shape from this. Um, but yeah, definitely different. One thing that was hard for me was the thought of giving up yoga classes was
yeah,
really weighing on me. I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna, because that really helps with my mental health.
yeah,
And I was like, if I have to get that, I don't know what I'm gonna do. But I found solutions, and I'm adapting and adjusting. So I'm seeing lessons in this, and that's what I'm trying to take away from it.
oh, adaptation is huge, man. You know,
Yeah,
people love to, and when I say people, I'm not excluding myself, you know. But when I say the things, I work on them. You know, I'm conscious of the things that I'm saying. But you know, people love, you know, it's no new concept. People love their comfort zones. People love to be. People love when other people agree with them, agree with what they think, even though they may not be the best ideas, solutions, or
right,
anything like
right.
that. So, but yeah, but to just adapt and always and just find the lessons in everything, man. You know?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So uh, it's it's affected you mainly in that. Are you feeling like trapped and cooped up? And you're alone in your house. That's one other thing we should talk about. Like Eric, you've got your family in your house. I've got mine. I'm still coming into the studio myself. But
Yeah.
Jeff, you are.
Yeah, dude, I live alone. I'm alone all day, every day.
It's the way that Joe said that right now that made me like a little, a little movie sad for him, you know?
Yeah, I imagine that's really hard. That's what I mean.
I
I'm.
mean,
Yeah, I know.
it's like again, like um, I just, you know, there's always the macro and the micro. You know, the micro would be like, oh, I'm alone all the time. This is so hard. And that's valid. But then the macro would be like, let me zoom out and let me think about people that are stuck in tumultuous relationships and they're at home with a spouse that's fucking treating them like shit, or around their kids all the time and they're going crazy because they have to work, but they got to homeschool their kids and they have all these responsibilities and all this anxiety. So, and an infinite more amount of worse off situations than me just being alone and being able to basically do whatever I want all the time, you know.
Right.
So yeah, it can get lonely, for sure. But I don't want to. I don't. Um, I'm aware. You know, I'm aware about the bigger picture, and I just always
Yeah.
try to think about the bigger picture. And when I do, I feel better. You know, like I feel
Right.
better. Like when I start getting depressed and lonely and all that shit, I just think about the bigger picture, and I'm like, man, you know what? Let me just get back to work. Let me go take a walk. You know,
Yeah, I mean, thank God we can go out for walks.
yeah,
That's
And
been
there's something very interesting, and I think I have a kinship with you in that sense, Jeff. And I was listening to, and take this with a grain of salt because it's going to talk about CrossFit, but mostly I want us to focus on the concept, right? There is a CrossFit coach by the name of Ben Bergeron, and he released a book about what it means to train, 2-time, 3-time CrossFit athletes, like CrossFit athlete champions, right?
yep,
And again, focus on the spirit of what I'm talking about, but not necessarily the specifics, right? But there is a CrossFit athlete who's won back to back. Her name is Katrin David's daughter, and there was an event, this is like a 3-day, 4-day sort of competition, but there was an event that had them fly out from Southern California to the origins of the CrossFit competition up north. I can't remember where it is. It's closer to the middle of California as opposed to north. But anyway, off they went. And it just happens to be that on their way back, their flights, the entire event's flights were getting canceled, right? Which meant they weren't going to get in until like midnight or 1 a.m. in the morning, which means they had X amount of time to rest before the next event the day after. And when the media were interviewing the different CrossFit athletes, some of them were like, oh man, I'm going to be too tired tomorrow. I'm going to be, we were talking about talking to the coordinators to have them push the event because who's really going to be ready for this, right? We need our rest and recovery, and all of it made sense, right? And then those same media people talked to Katrin, and they said, "What do you think about us getting stuck in the airport and our flights getting canceled?" And she's like, well, yesterday I performed pretty well, probably better than expected or just as expected. So that was good for me. We have X amount of hours before they say our plane is going to get here. So I'm going to take advantage of just getting some sleep as wherever I can. Maybe it's going to be on the floor. It's an hour-long flight back into Southern California. So there's opportunities there, and when I get into my, when we finally get back to our hotel, regardless of what time it is, I'm just going to do my very best to rest when I can. And then if the event is still on tomorrow, which I don't know, but if the event is still on tomorrow, given the sort of, adversity that I'm being put through, I'm just going to try to perform as best as I can. And when Bergeron pointed that out, actually, he's like, everybody was going through the same level of challenges and adversity. It takes a special champion level winning individual in what's between her ears is what makes her a champion. Because everybody's going through the same thing. Everybody is going through the same sort of and everybody's going to end up competing. Everybody's going to end up doing the same movements, right? You are partially, if not wholly limited to what's happening in the thoughts that's happening in your head.
Exactly.
And so that's the kind of stuff I broadcast to the team that I'm a part of at work. I'm like, we're all going to get put through the same kind of ringer. It's in our attitude and how we conduct ourselves and how we basically react to it, right? That's fully within our control. There's so many things that's out of our control, right? How we conduct ourselves moving forward is a thing that's going to keep us a cut above everybody else. Now, you can choose not to believe that, but I challenge you for the next 3 months to just take on that attitude. As a matter of fact, I went as far as sent them the audiobook so that they can passively listen to it during their drive into work or wherever they may be, where they're in the gym or just sitting there drawing. And I think to each person, to their credit, they took it on, and they're like, there is if I've heard anything back from them, even just in the way they conduct themselves whenever we're in the middle of a meeting, I can tell there's a difference because they can go like, oh yeah, so and so, so how do they apply it to their day to day? There is a huge gap. There's a divide between like what a CrossFit athlete does and what an artist does on a day to day, but not in how you conduct yourself between your ears. All right, because challenges come in whatever form. In CrossFit, in an athlete's case, it may be physical, but in an artist's case, it is sort of just like the mental attitude that you take towards any challenge that ends up in front of you. So they're like, oh yeah, this person is really difficult to deal with. They come from another team, they come from another product, or there's a ton of work on my table right now, and it's so hard to think of like what the end looks like, right? But to each of them, they go like, man, this is doable, and if it's not doable, I'll do the very best I can, right? Given the time, given the limitations, given the challenges, given whatever sort of like things that may actively, but out of my control, actively handcuff me in a situation where I don't feel like I am getting the best chance at it, or getting the best sort of opportunity space to succeed. Right? We already know the challenges are coming. It's how you conduct yourself afterwards,
Yeah, man.
Right.
And that mentality is not something that usually comes naturally to people.
Nope.
So I've heard Rogan say this, so I'm not going to take credit for it. But people, you know, when people want to get healthy, it's like, okay, let me watch what I eat. Let me exercise, right? But there's all so you want to watch what you put in your body, right?
Right.
But also, if you want mental health, you got to watch what goes into your mind. So
Right.
if you're on Facebook all the time and you're
Yep.
just seeing people complain and you're seeing people put up these shitty articles and you're seeing how terrible the world is, your mind is going to be in that mental state. If you
Yep.
have friends, if you have family members, if you have positive role models, whatever you want to call them in your life, and you're constantly talking to them about everything you just said, Eric, the way that you talk to your team, and you're around that, and that's what's coming into your mentality, that's how you're going to think. You're going to think
Yep.
more along those lines. You're going to
Yep.
get out of that victim, complain, things are so terrible. You're going to get out of that, you know?
Yep.
And I think, and again, it just comes back to, you know, I'll take it back to what I've been saying about zooming out, man. It's not about us, you know, it's about the bigger picture. And I think that's all part of it. And again, that's not, you know, that's not to be taken, uh what's the word, that's not gonna be, it's not gonna be taken 100%. Like,
Yeah.
our life and our mentality should be a balance of both, you know, but definitely more weighted towards everything you just said, you know.
Yeah, it's I mean, I recommend for the both of you to listen to the book because he breaks it down in the chapters in by which he trains this athlete, and rarely does it only exclusively focus on the physical, right? Like a lot of it has a lot to do with like what goes on in your brain, because a person is going to be able to lift more than you, run faster than you, draw better than you, let's say, right? Create better concepts than you, but it's how in the way that you conduct yourself, um in the actions that you take thereafter, right? Like the reality of it is, yeah, there's some guys who could probably draw better than you, right? But you know, can they outwork you, right? Can they out sort of like, you know, and this is being put in a competitive sense, so take it with a grain of salt, right? Like, can they do better at the things that that don't have anything to do with the physical? And if the answer is no, you're already in a better path, right?
Right.
And I think a lot of people miss that because there's a lot of different factors, but a lot of people miss it, but primarily for the things that you're talking about, Jeff, which is like we are predisposed to think negatively, right? Think that we are lesser than, and I don't understand why that's the space that we've come to. We are punished more than we are celebrated or commended, right? And I don't know. I have no idea how some people get there, most people get there, but I do know being conscious about like the state of mind that you're in when you're faced with adversity. That's so super important, and how you react to it.
Yeah, and I, you know, I was been thinking about this also, like, you know, and I could take this back to my whole simulation theory fucking idea, but it's like, you know, all every animal on in the world is born with like a certain programming, right? Like
Yep.
most animals, dude, when they're born, they're good to go. They could walk, they could hunt, you know, they have, even spiders, like no one teaches a spider how to spin a web. That's like an unbelievably complex thing, but they just do it. That's their programming, you know.
Right.
But like humans, we need to be taken care of for so long. We need to be coddled. We need to be loved. You know, like that's like part of the human programming. You know, and
Hmm. Hmm.
and so like I don't blame people that find it hard to get away from that kind of me, love me, feel
Yeah.
bad for me, help
Yeah.
me, you know, even if it's not on like the baby level, you know, even, I
Right.
mean, everything I just said, it could be a baby, it could be an adult, it would just be a different level
Yeah,
of
for
it.
sure. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like you want to have compassion for people, but you also want to say, yo, get the fuck up and go do that shit. Stop, you know, stop.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I think it's strange how, yeah, and I'm sure there are experts out there who have way more training and way more experience about this, but it's strange how there are people who have never been encouraged to grow up emotionally,
Right,
you know?
right.
It's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's such a tough concept for them to get past a certain mental developmental stage. And those same experts were like, actually, no, we should help, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, yeah, but that person is not a fully functioning member of society. And when adversity comes, they don't know how to handle it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
They don't have the facilities, they don't have a gear that they shift into, right? And some people have sort of, you know, made it a little bit I know they shame them into thinking they don't have the mental capacity by just saying like, hey, go get tough, you know, and go get good, right? But I think there's validity to that. when
Yeah.
you're when you're handling everything with kid gloves, how do you suppose to toughen somebody up mentally to be able to handle all the things that are happening to them? Again, there's
Yeah.
experts that'll probably laugh at everything that I just said, but hey, man, I believe in something completely different.
Yeah. I mean,
And
even
last
like when
part
you're,
again there?
Would you say, Sean? I missed it.
I said, say that last part again. You believe?
Yeah, I believe in something completely different. I believe there's a point in which you coddle. I believe there's a point when you encourage. I mean, I think that you should be encouraging, you know, more often than not. But also, there's a point where you're like, you just need to go fall on your face.
Yes.
right, man, 100%.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Totally.
I mean, I don't have any kids, but I use this example all the time. It's like you could tell a kid 100 times that the stove is hot, but they will never understand what that means until they burn themselves, you know?
Yeah,
And
and
it's
dude,
like and it's like the kid, okay, the kid, a human being, you don't make it through, you don't live to be an adult without burning your fucking hand.
for
Like
sure,
it's gonna happen, right? Like it's gonna
for sure.
happen. So like parents that, and then again, it's a touchy thing. I'm not telling parents to go let their kids burn their hands on stoves and stuff like that, but it's like, man, like I almost kind of want them to, like in a way, or whatever, just because it's like the faster you burn your hand, the faster and then it's like, you know, uh, the faster you do it, like, like the chicken pox, like we were talking about the other day, Eric. It's like, do you want
Yep,
to get it as a kid and have a mild case, or do you want to get it as an adult and have a terrible case? And
yep,
I feel like there's a metaphor there. It's like some things you want to do early on so you can realize, okay, I learned my lesson now. I'm good. You don't want certain lessons. You don't want to wait. You don't want to
yeah,
like rob the kid of that lesson.
yeah. And I think that's a key thing, at least for me, right? And in a situation that you are put into a failure space, right? Some parents, so you know, or mentors, let's use that broadly, right? Mentors don't know how to capitalize and optimize in the opportunity to be able to teach in that failure space. Because I think what people have a tendency to do is like, oh, you failed and therefore that's the finite concept, right? That's actually not very true, right? It's the farthest, at least for me, it's the farthest thing from truth, right? Which is like,
Right.
when you're presented with a failure space or the concept of failure, there's an opportunity to mentor and coach somebody to go like, what did we learn right then, right? Right. So that's to your point, Jeff. It's like, oh yeah, you can tell somebody that the stove is hot, but in the moment they burn themselves, they go like, oh, they learned that lesson. That's really the sort of like ultra simplified concept of what I'm talking about, which is like for
Yeah.
everything. Hey, you failed, or that did not meet up to your expectation. What did we learn, right? And it's like, if you can find the thing that you can focus on to go like, that's how we can improve, that's how we can, that's what we leverage next time. Where is it that we had the most fruitful version of this experience, and leverage that moving forward, and then also look for the opportunity space for improvement. That's how I believe, that's how you overcome, right? It's when people go, well, you failed and that's the end of that. That's when it becomes super painful, and that's why people don't want to, right? That's why people like, failure is such a painful experience, because there's no opportunity space for growth. They've been taught that over and over again, that failure is finite, and it's really not.
Right.
Well, I think failure really shows you who wants it and who doesn't. The people
Sure.
that just give, okay, I failed, I'm done.
Yep.
That they're not meant for it. The people that
Yep.
fail and keep going, keep trying, they don't accept the failure. Like
Yep.
that's where the real people. That's where the
Oh yeah.
real show up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There was, I'll give an example that my wife consistently goes through, because she has moments when she when she has these self-awareness issues where she's like, am I as good as what my potential is? And
Right.
I'm like, I don't know how you define what your potential looks like. But she's like, I don't know if I've gone as far in my career as I could have, or I've gone as far as I could have in the time that I spent in it. And we were talking specifically about this one moment in her life where she was seeing a lot of her contemporaries getting promoted into becoming storyboard artists over at Warner Brothers, right? Each and every single one of them either came in as like hot shots or were getting promoted ahead of her. And I was talking to her about like those individuals now, right? Like, where are they? And to give context, these were the people that for whatever version of wisdom that they had, Warner Brothers directors pulled a bunch of deviant art guys and pulled them into Warner Brothers Animation and said, oh yeah, these guys are good artists, these guys are good draftsmen, we can turn them into storyboard artists, which is like the worst fucking concept, but whatever. They didn't have a crystal ball, and neither do I. I was just a feeling that was eventually proofed out, right? These guys were like the hottest things on DeviantArt, seemingly to have good work ethic. You bring them under a roof of like expectation. Like nobody ever bothered asking them, like, see that pretty DeviantArt drawing that you took or that you have? How long did that take? Right? When you're on a
Mhm.
schedule, especially under the sort of like locomotive that is a Warner Brothers animation schedule, there's no snowflake. There's no like, oh, you're so special and amazing. You are under a deadline, and the expectation of everybody else is compounded onto you now because you're supposed to be hot shit, right? And
Yeah.
so what my wife was seeing was like all these people who were coming in, being brought up, being promoted up because of their hype, right? Fast forward to a relatively short amount of time, I'd say about 3 years, right? None of them are around anymore, right? But who do they talk about when it comes to really having the sort of like evergreen opportunities as a career? Talk about Cassandra, because she's the one that stayed hunkered down, paid attention to what's being told to her, and never had no as part of her vocabulary, right?
Mm.
They'd say, go change this because X, Y, and Z. She'd go like, yes, why am I changing it? Right? Not to defy authority, but she wanted to understand why those things were being changed so she could learn from them.
Right.
Right. So that's what catapulted her into a person that they really coveted. They really took into high admiration and said, like, oh yeah, we want to hold on to her. So I asked her, like, this thing that you're going through, especially when it comes to art and most things in life, it's not short game. You have to
Right.
think long term, right? Like, what does it mean? The guys who are getting the short term stuff, 50% of them, 60% of them don't know what it means and how good they have it because they never earned it. They just got it.
Yeah.
You, on the other hand, were under the guidance, tutelage of really a bunch of really smart, really well celebrated people, and they appreciated you in the end because you knew how to learn, whereas people just went in there and said like, eh, I guess I deserve this. There's a level of entitlement to everybody. She never had that. She
Right.
busted her hump for it.
Well,
Yeah. Looking at the bigger picture again, man, like zooming out, you know?
Yep, I agree.
yeah. To to just back up a bit, what you were talking about essentially with the cross trainer was mental flexibility
Yeah.
and like I was like for me, I mean I've been working on myself a lot over the past year or two. I guess mainly the past year, a lot of growth. And so I feel like with this, I've been able to be very flexible and knock it down. But like I said earlier, I'm feeling so much stress physically. Like I'm not stressed out, but I wake up with like a headache every day because my neck is so stiff from stress. You
Yeah.
know, I mean,
Sean, Sean,
well,
how much of that is financial? You
it's
know,
all
like are
financial. It's all
right,
financial.
Yeah, I
right,
bet.
right,
And so that's like I'm wrestling with that. Like, why if I feel like I'm in a really good place, then why is my body acting so differently?
Yeah,
It
that's
just,
got to be. Yeah.
what'd you say, Eric?
No, I was gonna say it's gotta stem from something that's not in your immediate sphere of influence, and that's got to be because finance. It's got to be, you know.
Oh, it definitely is. I mean, this,
Yeah.
like, if I want to, I can go down a rabbit hole of depression and anxiety from the financial um, effects of this coronavirus thing.
Right.
But that does nothing. It doesn't change the situation. Doesn't help the situation.
Right.
Right.
Doesn't improve the situation. So
Yeah.
there's no point. I mean, for
Yeah.
me, like this virus has now become for me like this staying at home and things being closed. It's now about how much growth can I achieve during this time, and what can I do to make that growth happen.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
that it gives me a little bit of excitement every day to go out and do something.
Super smart, man. It's all that. It's all in that between the ears programming, dude. And you
Yeah,
have control of that. You know, like you have absolute control of that.
yeah, I'm learning that more in the past year than I ever knew possible.
And I think also, man, I mean, I heard this one time. This is I guess more on the religious end, but I heard someone say one time that God never gives you more than you can bear. He'll
Right.
never put more weight on your shoulders than you can bear. And I think that you don't have to you don't even have to believe in God to understand that or to respect that concept. It's about the universe. It's about all that shit. It's about balance. And just having a faith in the journey, like in the process, and
Right.
because
Right.
a lot of times things happen that on the surface look terrible, even catastrophic, and they end up being our best lessons. They end up leading, maybe in that moment this is terrible, but they end up leading us into an entirely new way of thinking, an entirely new situation that we never could have planned or even thought about. And now we realize, wow, like that was so necessary for me to become this person, or for this opportunity that changed my life to present itself. I had to go through that fucked up opportunity.
Exactly.
Um, and then at the same time, I use this metaphor also, man. Like if your life is a sequence of dominoes, it's like, don't worry about those dominoes that are up ahead. Only worry about the next couple of dominoes, because if something happens and that domino doesn't hit those other dominoes, then you just spend all that time worrying about some shit that never was going to happen in the first place.
Yeah.
Because those dominoes didn't fall the way you thought they were going to fall. My parents, they wanted to move. They live in like an association, and the association fees were high and all that, and um, so they're trying to refinance and they're trying to move by this date and all these things. And my mom and my stepdad, they kind of delegated the things they needed to do to get the house ready and clean up. And my stepdad was going slower than my mom wanted him to, and all this shit. And I told my mom, I said, just stop. I said, just do what you need to do. Do what you need to do. Don't worry about the things you don't need to worry about. Everything, and again, have faith in the journey, have faith in the process. My stepdad ended up getting a new job, a better job recently. So now they're able to afford the mortgage, and now they don't have to move right away. And when that happened, I said, wow, Mom, look at that. I said, all that worrying, all that stressing that you were doing, you were worrying about those dominoes. You were worrying about the dominoes up ahead, and you didn't even know that that dominoes right in front of you were going to take a turn and start a whole new set of fucking dominoes to fall. And now you don't even have to worry about all the things that you were going crazy about a month ago. And because you had no idea that my stepdad was going to get a new job, and he did. And that's a perfect example of what
Yeah. I mean, the universe. If you can sort of change your thinking and just see every challenge as an opportunity and keep your mind open to possibilities, it seems like the universe has ways of making things appear in front
Yeah.
of you.
And what I think
and it,
a
man,
component. Go ahead, dude.
and if I go back to my simulation theory, man, it's like that's the test that the fucking machines or the aliens or the spiritual whatever made the simulation. They put these little challenges in front of you, and it's like a fucking video game, man. It's like, or it's like one of those stories where you can choose your own destiny, you know. It's like they put the situation in front of you, and depending on how you react to it, that's the way your life is going to go. That's the way the simulation is going to adapt itself to change your journey.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, life is just. Yeah, I think the sooner you embrace the idea that it is chaos, and you try to just ride it,
Ride it, man.
you can steer it, you can nudge it a little bit, but yeah, I think it creates a much healthier place for you mentally if you accept that idea. Where'd Eric go? Is Eric still here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. All right. So Jeff, it's financially you're not really affected by this too much, or you are from the loss of the convention.
Mm, yeah, I mean, if we stop doing conventions, I'll be affected. But for now, I'm fine because, again, I'm fortunate. I don't have any. I live alone. Don't have any kids. Don't have, all that stuff to worry about. So
Right.
I'm all right. I'm all right for now.
And your mental health is okay being at home alone. Sounds like.
I'm good, man. I mean, we all got our breaking points, but I'm far from that right now.
Right. Okay. Cool. And with that, I guess we're getting close to the end there, Eric.
Are we? Is this near the end?
I mean, it feels like it feels like naturally the end is upon us. The conversation is dulled. It's not dulled yet, but it's getting quieter.
No. I yawned
Yawn.
only because I was up super early this morning. And if that somehow translated as naturally coming to an end, I hope that I wasn't the catalyst for it.
No, it seemed like the conversation was slowing down a bit, unless you guys
Yeah, I
something.
thought we were gonna end up talking about comic books a little bit, talking
Oh,
about
right,
how
right,
that's
yeah,
it.
no, you're right, you're right. I
Yeah.
do. Let's go. Let's do it.
Yeah, man. I'm good to go a little bit more.
Yeah. So, this whole virus thing, I know we've been talking about the financial implications on us, but it's affecting the business of comics.
Yeah.
So, Eric, why don't you lead into this?
Yeah.
It had been something that I was talking about. I don't know when it dawned on me what an awful system it's been set up to be. And then the more I thought about it as the years have passed on, it's an awful system that's consistently upheld by the people who are publishing the books themselves, right? So here's the concept, and I don't know if, I mean, your reader, excuse me, your listeners probably know how the comic books distribution works, but for the sake of
Cover it.
sake of clarity, I'll tell you. I'll give you the quick breakdown of it, and some of it's going to be so glossed over, so this isn't going to be any a level of specificity that's necessary. But here it goes. Comic books, in order for it to get into your local comic book store, the brick and mortar places, all have to distribute into a place called Diamond, right? Diamond then takes a cut so that they can have their they can pay for their lights to stay on, and that cut is transferred onto the brick and mortar, the comic book store owners, right? That's then sort of like, how what's the best way to do it? So comic book companies, comic book publishers sell at a certain price point. That price point is sent to Diamond distributors. Then Diamond distributors are bought from by the brick and mortar places. I think that's the simplest way that I can say that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So technically, the comic book store owner is not buying directly from Marvel; they're buying from a middleman,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And more often than not, I'd say 9 times out of 10, 0%, or excuse me, 9 times out of 10, those, what do you call it, the books that they buy from that middleman are not returnable.
Right.
Right. So after I buy, copies of comics X, Y, and Z, If I don't sell them, they're sitting on my shelves, right? I make no money from them. Whereas in the past, it's like if it sits there, I can send them back to you, and you can do whatever the heck you want from them. I don't know when I don't recall what year it was that comics became non-returnable, but there you go. So when one of the, but so that is, as a business model, there is a single point of failure that cascades outward and then back inward into how an industry is being set up. And it makes absolutely no sense as a business to me why they've allowed themselves to get into this situation.
Right. And
Right. And
also the orders, I think it's important to point out, the orders are all, they're all pre-orders, and it's all built on speculation.
absolutely. There's the other one where it's like nobody gets to see any of these issues. As a comic book store owner, I'm sitting there going, well, I think people will want to buy this, right? And it's incentivized to buy more in order to get those like special issues, right? They short count specific issues. So as a like for me to get the special cover from Jeff Dekal, I have to order 10 or 20 copies of the regular covers so that I can have an opportunity to get that one cover from him, because that's the premium. Do you
Right.
understand what a fucking awful system that is?
Yeah.
That sets these guys who have, basically how you get your comics, it sets them up for failure right away.
I get that.
And so when one of those things falls, right, not the least of which the opportunity to be able to buy the comics, as we're experiencing now, there's no way the comic book publishers can get those comics into the hands of people who buy them. And by the way, buying comics is habitual. Don't let anybody tell you differently, right? If somebody falls out of the habit of buying comics, you're going to see a major drop off in people being able to, in a major drop off in that business.
Right. Right.
It's a silly system that should have been rethought a long time ago, and yet nobody has taken the initiative. Somebody always asks, like, well, what's the answer? Is it digital? And I go, I don't know. Is it? Or is it like direct distribution into, like, is it a subscription? I'm like, I don't know. Is it? Why haven't you explored any and all of those things?
Right. And also, I mean, the way we are consuming media is changing rapidly
Right.
as all these habits it just feels so stuck in an old time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel for the comic book sellers, the brick and mortar places, right?
Yeah.
Because they've made note, hey, comic book publishers, we've been the people who have been the standard bearers for your industry for however many years. If you decide to go full on digital, if you go to direct distribution, what then becomes of us, right? And I
Right.
understand the empathy that must go out from these publishers to them, going like, you're absolutely right, we don't want to shut down your guys' business. The cold thing is that it is a business, right? If you are in the publishing business, in order to get your product in front of as many of your fans, you had to have been thinking about this 3 years or 10 years ago.
Right. Right.
You had to have identified, because I refuse to believe everybody that's in the publishing end is stupid. They're not, right? I've met like more than a handful of them. They're really, really super smart people. So I don't know why they didn't decide, hey, we have to think long term. And sometimes long term means, as Jeff said, like you're just going to have to let some things go, right? You're just going to have to evolve into a version of yourself that has sustainability in mind. And it just happens to be that brick and mortar places might not be your number one way of getting these books out to your fans.
Right.
It may be a way for sure, but
Right.
it might not be the way, right?
Right.
What is your ultimate goal as a business, right? It's to get your product in front of people who are willing to buy it. And what you're saying is there's only, I don't know, do you remember how many comic book shops are in the country now?
Oh, I have no idea.
It's got to be still 3,000, less than, more than, just nationally. So what you're saying is like, yeah, this is the only way a kid who ends up loving Spider-Man because of Tom Holland. This is the only way he'll get his comics.
Right.
Or another version of Spider-Man is to go into one of these places. There's only 2,000 nationally, 3,000 nationally. Like, I don't understand that at all. You exhaust every possibility. And if they say like, oh, we have exhausted every possibility, I'm like, have you? Have you?
Right. And also comics have, I mean, the floppy itself is such a strange means of delivering something with the price point they're set at right now.
Yeah.
It's insane. I mean, if you're looking at a floppy that's $4 to $5, but a trade paperback, which is 5 or 6 times the length, is $15.
Yeah. I don't understand that math either.
Yeah,
Eric, do you think for something like that to change, it would need like a mobilization of all the comic shops to come together to petition, to do whatever they got to do? It would take a big uniformity of all them to come together to do that, to change Diamond, to
Comic shops? No, it comes from the publisher end. Some
uh,
way, somehow, the publisher has agreed. This is the most publishers have agreed. This is the only way we're going to distribute our stuff. Because if there was a more lucrative version of distribution, right, they would have taken advantage of it by now. But to your question, it would need a cultural change from the publisher end to go. We want to get our stuff more, in front of our fans.
so
What does that mean?
who has more power, the publisher or Diamond?
Well, without the publisher, Diamond doesn't have anything to distribute,
Right. So
right?
this is all the publishers' agreement. Like
Yeah,
they're with it. Like they're not trying to like they like
right.
the Diamond.
Yeah, yeah. Or something has convinced them that this is the best way to get their product out. Millions of people who want to see your thing. I mean, Disney is doing everything that they can to make sure that you're like, Spider-Man and Guardians of the Galaxy and Captain America exists. Not actively saying, hey, it's in comic book form, but they're saying, hey, dude, these properties exist. Now it's up to you to go like, not with hat in hand, asking like, hey, Disney, how come you don't promote the fact that there's public? Like, fuck you. That's not their business. Their business is to say, we're going to take these heroes and put it across the world. Your business is to say, oh, by the way, there's more things in front of it. There's more avenues by which you can experience these people's adventures. It's not up to Disney to tell people that there's comics available. There's these heroes available in comic book form. It
right.
does them no good.
It makes
So,
them no money. I mean, the comic books make them no money.
yeah. And so as a comic book industry, you go like, okay, so we are now, and here's the other thing I was looking at. I forgot what the website is online. Is it Comic-Con, I think? And you can see like anytime that somebody says to me like, oh, the comic book industry is doing fine. I don't know how somebody can look at data, actual numbers that's scrolling in front of them, understanding how much it's constricting and say that everything is fine.
You got
The everything is fine guys, I akin to those dudes who are like still playing the violin as the Titanic is going down.
yeah.
Everything's cool. Keep everybody calm. Just play the fucking violin. And you're
Damn.
like, are you out of your brains?
Creators are getting paid less and less to do more and more. That's not a sign that things are fine.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a tough situation to be in because there's no immediate answer. And I think ultimately that's what's hurting the most, is that they should have been thinking about an answer 10 years ago and investing in that answer. So here's a perfect, I think it's a good analogy, not a direct one. Okay. When Steve Jobs was developing the concept of the iPod, right? Um, they didn't have the technology to house it or to make it. you know they didn't, or they didn't have the hard drive small enough that'll fit 1,000 songs into your pocket. But they kept working on it, they held on to it, and they innovated because they knew eventually things will catch up.
Right.
Right. things, you have to have faith in the model, in this investment that you're making, or in the product that you have, that eventually things were going to catch up. And people are like, Steve, why are you focusing so much on, music that'll fit in your pocket? We're not a music company, right? And he's like, no, but we're a technology company.
Right.
Right? You have to have the belief, that's the long-term belief that this product has legs, and you have to have an understanding of what the DNA of your product is. And when you don't, you buy into a concept that has a single point of failure into it, because you go like, well, it's the only way that we can make money. Well, now it is, now, because you put yourself in this situation.
Right.
You're giving a massive discount to so that you can hold up this distribution system. You could have established a distribution infrastructure on your own a long, long time ago, but you didn't want to do that.
Right. And now, because of this viral thing, comic shops are
It helps to, yep, it just helps to highlight all the failures that led into this space. Your fans want your book. They can't get it now.
right, and the
Right?
distributor can't distribute it. The
Right.
publishers, once the distributor can't distribute it, the publisher have no idea of why they should, how it,
Or they're not set up for it, so it's going to be clumsy right off the bat,
yeah.
And I heard a couple of publishers and some creators go like, I refuse to to distribute digitally because I
Yeah.
don't want to screw the brick and mortar places out of opportunity for income. And I'm like, I understand the sentiment behind that, and it's kind, and it's very accommodating to a failing industry. But man, oh man, if somebody wants your product, why do you not want to give it to them?
Right. You don't, I mean, right. I don't want to
Who
be
do
on
you,
that line either,
yeah,
but I don't want to kill myself too because my friend's dying.
yeah, I'm like, who do you care more about? Do you care about the fans who are like, I would think that that's, as a creator that has a direct line to your fans, isn't that what you care about? Isn't that what you ultimately like? I want to make sure that these guys are reading my books and enjoying it, and I'm getting feedback from them how I can do this product better, right?
Yeah.
Eric, do you think whatever this new form of distribution will be, I mean, why can't the comic shops be in on it? Like, why can't they, you know, why?
I'm not saying they can't. I'm saying like it's going to be a harder transition for them, because their infrastructure is built upon these sets of processes coming into play, right?
Right.
I order from Diamond gets it from my from mainstream publisher, and I have to sit here and wait to see whether or not these books will sell. It's a crapshoot, right? There's
Right.
some that are automatic for sure, like Batman's going to sell, no problem, because it's Batman. But there's some things that people release, and that's the other part. Like, a publisher release something, and I don't know why. Marvel might be guilty of this the most. Well, they release something and it has all sorts of agenda laden stuff that's built into it. Not all of Marvel, certain parts of it, right? I can't account for every Marvel book, but certainly parts of it is like, oh, I understand what that's trying to do, but that's not going to sell any issues. It's gonna, you've moved your metric away from a capitalist concept, which is like, hey, we need to make X amount of money in order to keep the lights on, and you moved it towards a idealistic one, which is, hey, we need to bring up awareness for, insert whatever sort of agenda thing that you have in your brain, whether it be for inclusion, right? Whether it be for, I don't know. There's a lot of it. Recently, it's been a lot of inclusion, and you go, that's amazing. That's really, I'm a proponent of that concept, right? That your metric of success is based on the concept of like, hey, look at how aware we are now of the current geographic landscape that we inhabit as a society. I'm all for it, but don't, if you buy into that concept, that's totally cool, but don't be surprised when your returns are less and less and less, because people aren't buying it, right? They can get behind it in theory, they can get behind it in concept, of course, why not? It would be almost unheard of to say, hey, those people should not be included. But when it comes to actual people who are buying your product, and it sucks that things still exist around money, but it's the only way you can keep the lights on, right?
Mhm.
Because you can't keep the lights on in ideology, at least not directly.
Mm.
Don't be surprised when you go like, oh crap, man, how come our business is failing? How come we're contracting annually? How come, you know? And it doesn't impact just that one book. It impacts you as a brand.
Right.
Yeah.
Makes no sense. But a lot of smart people work in those companies. A lot of things are happening behind the scenes that I'm not privy to. But from the outside looking in, and that's all I'm doing. On the outside looking in, I'm going like, wow, you guys are that is just an awful way to exist. To always be at the behest of a single point of failure. And then on top of that, not put out a brand that's optimizing for the sort of things that you need in order to keep your business up and running.
Do you think? I mean, this is kind of human nature, you know. I mean, to
In
kind of,
what way, Joe?
you know, um, I'm not worldly enough to like kind of tie it all together, but just to kind of do something, get it going, everybody kind of catches on, time goes by, new technology, new ways of thinking are
Oh yeah,
created.
yeah.
That original way that you started
Mm-hmm.
is kind of working, but everybody knows it's time to change. But there's been all these systems established around it that rely on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's change. It seems like you can really apply that to everything, man.
You can.
And then it's like, just the whole Uber, Airbnb thing with hotels and cab drivers.
For sure.
It's like, yeah, terrible. Hotels, cab drivers that are losing all this money, terrible, right? People are out of jobs, terrible, right? But
Right.
come on, man. Like time goes on, technology goes on,
It
like
does.
things
It
change. Like
does.
this is how it goes, and
It
everything
does.
like that, you're gonna experience growing pains. Like
Yeah.
that's the hardest part is taking that first step and getting all those. It sucks, man. Like there's no way around it. It fucking sucks. There's gonna be growing pains. People are gonna lose money, lose jobs. That's how it goes. But I don't have a solution. I don't know what to do. I just recognize that that's universal, man, to human development and
That evolution, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
for sure.
evolution, survival of the fittest, only the strong survive. Like species die, things
It
die.
does.
Like again,
Yeah.
that goes back to my whole fucking zoom out. Things are bigger. Things are bigger than what we think it is. And I'm not. And when I say that, man, I'm saying that because I just recognize it. Like if I was the one getting wiped out or getting suffering and all that shit, I don't want that. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that sucks, man. I don't want to suffer. I don't want any of that. But
Right, but it
yeah,
also
man.
illustrates to back to Eric's point is we have to always be looking to grow and
Yeah.
and looking, never getting comfortable in where we are, always trying to see and what's coming, like you were saying, to some degree, and adapt and grow
Yeah.
and try new things.
Not just
Right. And it,
project
and
for what's coming, you have to over project. Even if the answer is, oh, it didn't go in that direction. You have
right.
to innovate in such a way while you still have an understanding of your audience, you have an understanding of the DNA of your product, right? And go like, what is it? Are we just maintaining or are we actually growing? And if the answer is you're maintaining, you have a finite shelf life.
Right. And it's better to like have like constant little suffering episodes than to
Yeah,
just put it all aside and then when the shit hits the fan have one enormous fucking loss. Like you want to always keep adapting, and every time you adapt it's like, oh, I got to stretch a little bit further. That hurt, but okay, I'm good. Let's keep going, instead
right,
of just again just fucking putting it all to the side. I'll worry about it when I have to.
right. And that's what's happened, right? We're just like, we'll just put it all aside until we'll worry after we'll have to. And then last week hit, or the past couple of weeks hit, and they're like, oh fuck, there's no way to fix it now. We just have to wait it out and see what happens. Like the medium in and of itself, like panel panel storytelling, that's not gonna go away. That's
No, no, no.
but in how you get it into your fans' hands, It's super painful.
And to be fair, we are talking about superhero comics pretty much.
Yeah.
There is a whole industry of webtoon, web
Yeah.
comics that are making good money. There's a whole like graphic novel book industry that's doing well. We are talking about mainstream superhero for the most part comics.
Yeah.
Eric, is this just in the U.S.? Do other countries? I mean, I'm sure Diamond still distributes to other countries, but do other countries have like other ways of doing it?
Diamond
Yeah.
distributes to the States. I'm pretty sure that all the other countries are publishing it there in their languages.
Yeah, they have
Right.
their
Right.
they have their distributors overseas.
Okay.
And who knows how it's impacted them, right?
Right.
I can't account for it.
Before all this, I mean, manga, I doubt manga in Japan is taking too much of a hit ultimately. Like, I doubt their industry is in threat of collapse.
Yeah.
And how did this affect, like, why is Diamond, not, cutting back or whatever, just because they're understaffed now and everybody's staying home? Is it the same situation like that?
Yeah. They've been told, hey, put everything down. Right? You cannot do anything right now because of what's been happening. Send your staff home, send your distributions, shut down your distribution center. They're not part of that essentials list.
And also, the shops aren't going to be placing the orders because they don't have the people coming in the stores.
Correct.
Right.
The publishers are all being sent home, because for whatever reason, or they could have kept open because a lot of their freelancers are working from home, but with no avenue to distribute it into, they don't.
And
their pipeline breaks.
Right, and a lot of those freelancers are getting calls right now to stop working.
Yep.
I've seen a lot of that lately.
Yeah, my heart breaks for each and every single one of them. I'm going to guess that more often than not, a lot of them are very talented, very good at their jobs, telling really super, engaging stories, and they're passionate about how they tell those stories. But what's let them, and I don't have any qualms with those guys. I'm like, those guys are just doing their best. I have an issue with the people, with the business that they work for.
Right.
Everybody's been calling bullshit on them for years, and they were like, but things are doing fine, right? Things are fine? Question mark.
Right. I kind of feel like freelance kind of dried up for me a lot within the past couple years, which has been kind of a blessing, I think, because it's made me think a lot about what I'm doing it, how I'm doing it, how I'm making a living, all that stuff.
Yeah. As that industry contracted, I'd come to recognize they were opting for, and again, this is to say that this is a secondary view is being super generous. I'm looking at it from a tertiary view. As that industry contracted, it opted to go for guys that have already an ongoing name for them, or they already had sort of in their payroll,
Right.
or going in the direction of that social awareness route, right? Which I go like, hey man, that's the business model that you want to bring. You hear from a whole lot of people. I can't remember who was explaining this to me when they shifted all of their titles to be more like, oh, now we're gonna make all the heroes female instead, right? Or I can't remember what that event was, and I was like, oh, is that what that was? Because again, I'd been out of comics for a while. And when I can't remember, the chief financial officer, somebody in Marvel's ranks said, hey, these aren't doing well for us financially. We're going to have to pivot back into what our audience has an understanding for us for. And there was a huge response, and it's the poor version of the internet. There was a huge response to the contrary. They were like, how dare you drop those titles? Again, this is a story being told to me secondhand, so I'm not exactly 100% sure. But they were like, don't drop those titles. That's such a, there was a huge backlash against them saying, hey, we need to go back to business as usual. And so they didn't. And I thought to myself, like, what a bonkers concept. Because they think somebody, I don't know, it just sounds like to me, and this is probably not true, it just sounds like to me they didn't know how to pivot away from the stuff they were currently publishing, which was not, garnering them the kind of income that they needed, but not exactly just throw it all out. Hold on to the good stuff, right? Hold on to the stuff that really makes sense for you as a company, and also, your social DNA. But then to double down on it to the point where you're like, I saw some of these numbers of the books that they're trying to sell. I'm like, are you kidding? It made me ask, like, what's cancellation numbers for Marvel now?
Right.
Like what is the cutoff issue per issue where you go like, yeah, we can't comfortably continue to print that book.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Eric, let me ask you, if you were to do a comic book now, let's say you create your own book,
Yeah.
what avenues do you think you would explore for getting it out there?
I honestly wouldn't do it. I
Why?
honestly, like, even under the auspices of like, hey, maybe I should do it just for fun.
Mhm.
I don't know, man. It's in order to get my own comic book out, where would I go in order to distribute it?
I mean, would you just do it digitally yourself?
Yeah, I think I would have to, first of all, I would have to define for myself what my metric of success is. And in that scenario, it couldn't be financial. It would just
Right.
be for the sake of doing it, you know?
Right.
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 So I would have to expect that I would be making zero money out of it
Right.
up front, right? And it's not to say that's always at the forefront of my mind, but that's just me going through the sort of like things that I have to get comfortable with in my head. And then there's a nostalgia for print, and I don't know if that makes any sense. If all I want to do is be able to have people read my stuff, then I would try to do my very best to make it as accessible as possible. Considering I don't need to make money off of it, or I can't, I'm expecting to make $0 off of it, it would probably have to be digital.
Right.
What would you do for print though, just for argument's sake, Like let's say you had this book was really personal to you. You wanted to do some really cool way of printing it. It's like a really nice kind of paper, embossed, whatever, man. Just some cool way of printing, and you wanted to print it.
Okay, so you're asking me like if print was prioritized in this
Yeah,
venture, right?
yeah,
Oh man, I don't know. I definitely make it a hardcover,
yeah. Okay.
which then immediately takes it out of a handful of people's hands because that has a price point that's not automatically approachable, right?
Okay.
I go the other way. I'd actually go two ways. One, that very prestige way where you look at it and you're like, man, this feels really, really good to have in hand, like a French album, which is something that I have an affinity for. Or I'd go really, really cheap. Or I would just like staple that shit in my own kitchen.
Right.
Yeah. And I sure as heck would not want it to look like a comic book.
Right. Right.
What about you, Jeff? What do you think you would do?
Well, I mean, I'm in that situation because I'm about a third of the way done with my story with my book. I definitely still have at least another year, probably realistically year and a half, even more realistically, probably fucking 2 years before I'm like completely done with it and ready to publish it. And yeah, man, I want it to be like Eric said. I want it to be like that old album type shit. I want people to really want the object. I want to.
Right.
It's not going to be a floppy comic book. It's going to be something nice. And I don't know. Let's see where things are at in a year or two. I have no idea where my life is going to be, where our lives, where the industry, where all that shit's going to be. But yeah, I mean, if I did it today, I'd want it to be a really nice object, and uh, I'd want people to be able to get it. So I don't know.
I think there's something you said there that's really smart. It's just like, if you can afford to wait just for a little until all this stuff shakes out, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think it's worth your time, you know?
yeah. Maybe this, because I've been working on it for so long. I work on it in between projects. I kind of put it away for a while, and it's like that's the main, when I talk about it, that's the main question everybody asks is, how you going to get it out? How you going to publish it? And I've never had an answer. I say I have no idea. We'll see where I'm at when that time comes.
Yeah.
So honest, so again, man, like my simulation here, maybe I've made the right decisions, and I've kind of waited, and when I finally am ready, maybe we'll be in some new place, some new
Yeah,
publishing space,
for sure.
and we'll see how it goes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's a question I'm asking myself a lot because I mean, what I'm trying to do now is figure out how to make a living with my drawing, and I still want to make comics, but I don't want that to be my income. But I do want to make them, so I need whatever I'm doing to support that, and then I want to figure out what the best route of putting it out is.
What time do we have? Oh shoot, it's 11 o'clock my time.
Yeah, I was gonna say we should probably wrap it up soon. We've been going a long time.
Yeah, man.
All right. Anything else anyone wanted to say before we go?
No, that's it from me, buddy.
Yeah,
Thanks
I'm
for
good.
putting me on, man. This is awesome.
Yeah, this is super cool. And again, and man, just another example, man. It's like we're adapting. Inkpulp
Yes.
season
Yes.
9 is fucking Zoom video. It's
Right. That's exactly right.
it's huge,
Exactly.
huge.
All
All
right.
right,
Well,
buddy.
thank you guys for hanging out and doing this with me.
Yep.
Of course, man.
Thank you.
All right then.
Have a
I'm gonna,
wonderful weekend, Sean.
you
We'll
too.
talk to you
Look,
later.
I'm just gonna stop recording and then we can just say our personal goodbyes. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
All right. So thanks for listening, everyone.